Hello, I'm Ollie and this is Criminolly, where I talk about crime, pulp, horror, that kind of thing. Today, a bit of horror, a lot of westerns, and the worst book I have ever read. It's my weekly wrap-up. Okay, so normal format for this, my weekly Saturday video. So I'll talk about the books I've read in the last week or so. It's actually a kind of a week and a half, and I'll talk about why in a minute. Talk about what I think I'm going to be reading next, and then just have a bit of a chat about the channel, what videos I've put up in the last week and what's coming in the week ahead. So when I did my video last Saturday, I did my May wrap up rather than a normal weekly one. So there had actually been a few days of June by then. I can't remember how many. I don't know, 3 or 4. So this is kind of a week and a half's worth of reading this week. So a few books to talk about. So obviously it is June on the Range at the moment, the wonderful Western reading event created by Michael K. Vaughan, which I'm one of the co-hosts of. And I'll try and remember to put a link to all of the co-hosts in the description for this. So I've mostly read westerns this week, and some absolutely fantastic ones. So a couple on my Kindle. So the first one I read was Riders of the Purple Sage by Zane Grey from, I think, 1912, which I really, really enjoyed. It was really over the top and melodramatic, but you can see why it had such an influence on the Western genre, and it was just pure entertainment. I really, really enjoyed it. And then after that, by complete contrast, I read Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy, which is a much, much darker, more horrible Western, a kind of modern look back at some of the atrocities that were carried out during that time. So yeah, a really difficult and disturbing book. I've done a comparison video of the two of those books. I thought they made quite an interesting counterpoint to each other. So that went up last Thursday, or Thursday just gone. So those two were a very good start to June on the Range for me. Really enjoyed both. I then read a couple from this lovely Library of America edition of The Western, which has got 4 novels from the 40s and 50s. So I read The Oxbow Incident by Walter Van sorry, crikey. Right, so I read The Oxbow Incident by Walter Van Tilburg Clark and Shane by Jack Shaefer. Again, those were both excellent. I really, really enjoyed both of them. So The Oxbow Incident was kind of not what I was expecting at all. So it's about there's like a small town in the west. There's been some rustling and a kind of cowhand, whatever you call them, cattle rancher type chap has been killed as well. And the townspeople get all kind of wound up about it and form a posse to go out and find the rustlers and bring them to justice. And it's just about what happens. Very interestingly, it's told from the perspective of a character who's kind of a peripheral character. So it's written in the first person, and the guy is like one of the guys who goes along with the posse, but he's not like an instrumental character in the story at all, really. So you see it through his eyes. You see, the interactions of all the main characters. So it's a really fascinating way of doing it, and it was excellent. It reminded me a bit of the Twilight Zone. One of the things the early episodes of the Twilight Zone did really well is take a situation and just kind of let it play out, but fill it with a kind of reflection and kind of a bit of social commentary, really, about the nature of society and humanity. And the Oxbow Incident definitely does that. So it's quite dark. Very thoughtful, really enjoyable. Not what I was expecting at all. No, not an action-y type Western. But you really has that kind of Western vibe to it, nevertheless. That was fantastic. And then Shane, which is completely different. So much more typical Western in that it's about a kind of the kind of mysterious gunfighter figure who turns up on the doorstep of this family who are going through some problems in that there's like a cattle baron who wants to get their land. Basically, it's that kind of Western trope. but a wonderful ramping up of tension. And again, like the Oxbow Incident, it's told from the perspective of a kind of peripheral character. So it's told from the perspective of the young son of the family, who like idolises both his father and Shane, this mysterious gunman, as well. So he's not, again, he's not a central character to the story, but seeing it through his eyes gives it a real power. So there's some lovely kind of coming of age stuff in it, as well as the action. There's some fantastic fight scenes, and just, as I say, just a wonderful ramping up of tension. So another really great Western, and I think one that was very influential on the genre as well. So continuing with the Western theme, also read the first novel in this Elmore Leonard collection, The Bounty Hunters, which was his first novel, published in 1953, which is about a kind of cavalry guy who's become a scout, going with another guy into Mexico to try and hunt down this Native American like chief who's on the run. It was exciting. There was some really tense kind of build-ups to gunfight kind of scenes in it, but overall it didn't quite work for me, and I can't really put my finger on why, but it just didn't grip me in the way that the other Westerns I've read up to that point had done. So that was kind of more of a 3-star read for me. It was good, the characters were good, the dialogue was great, as you'd expect from Elmore Leonard, but yeah, it just didn't quite grip me as much as I expected it to. So further Westerns, so also have read this one, which is more of a trashy Western, so Longarm and the French Actress, which is like from a long-running series. So I think there's about 300 books in this series. And then there's also a spin-off series, Lone Star, as well. So Longarm is a sheriff. This book has much, or is he a marshal? I think he's a marshal. So this has more of the feel of like a cop novel, really, than a Western, in that he is a policeman who is assigned to protect Sandra Bernhard, the actress, who has, sorry, not Sandra Bernhard, she's a modern actress, Sarah Bernhard, the famous French actress, who is touring America, putting on plays. So Longarm is assigned to protect her, and there are various people out to get her. So It Came From The Page did a video about a Longarm book a week or so ago. He covered it in his June on the Range wrap-up. And similar, I found very similar things about this book to what he'd said about the one he read. So it's kind of a smutty Western, so there is a lot of sex in this book. And Longarm has sex with most of the women he meets. But what's wonderful about it is, that normally the women are the people that instigate that sex, and Longarm just kind of goes along with it, basically. I mean, he clearly enjoys it, but he doesn't. It's not him that makes the moves. And also the range of women that he sleeps with is, really quite wonderfully diverse. So he sleeps with a Chinese woman, a woman who's a bit overweight, what else? An older woman. So yeah, there's a real variety to his sexual partners, which is quite refreshing. It's not just blue-eyed blondes. And also there was quite a nice theme of kind of anti-fascism in the book, basically. So Sarah Bernhard, the actress, was half Jewish, and a lot of the detail of the plot against her is that the people behind it are right-wing anti-Semites. So there was a ton of stuff about kind of that, and Longarm's opposition to that that kind of political ideology. So it was surprisingly diverse and progressive for a pulpy Western written in the 80s. So yeah, I enjoyed that quite a bit. And then also read Crossfire Trail by Louis L'Amour. So L'Amour, obviously one of the greats of Western fiction. This is an earlier one of his, I think, again from the 50s. Yeah, 54, so about the same time as the Elmore Leonard book. So this is about a guy who's been shanghaied, and on the ship that he's shanghaied on, he meets this guy who owns a ranch. The guy dies, and the hero, who's called Rafe Karadec, goes back, manages to escape from being shanghaied and escapes from the ship, goes back to the US to try and pass on the kind of deeds to the ranch to the guy's daughter, but there's all these other people who are trying to get hold of the ranch, and Rafe Carradine gets involved in all of that. So again, it's the kind of cattle barons trying to kind of steal people's land and that kind of thing. So it was, it wasn't fantastic, but it was an enjoyable Western tale. Some again, like the Elmore Leonard, some really good tense kind of build-up scene. So there's a gambling scene in this which was absolutely fantastic. I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that part a lot more than some of the gunfights and things like that, but yeah, still an enjoyable light Western read. So in terms of non-Western stuff, so I've read 2 non-Western things this week. So one was a short story by Harlan Ellison from this collection, All the Sounds of Fear. So the story was his very famous story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, which was a really creepy book story about kind of computers gone bad. So almost like a dark fantasy in some ways rather than science fiction. But yeah, really dark, really creepy, really enjoyed that. So I read that for David Wiley's birthday, so it was his birthday this week, and David had suggested that people should read a Harlan Ellison short story on his birthday, which I did. So thank you for that recommendation, David. I think it's the first Harlan Ellison I've read, and I really enjoyed it, so looking forward to reading more stories in this book. And then also read the book that I mentioned at the start, which I think is probably the worst book I've ever read. So I'm going to do a separate video on this. I'm going to use it as a talking point for my Sunday Bollocks video tomorrow. But the book was, I'm not sure I get the title right, Way of the Shadow Wolves by Steven Seagall. So Steven Seagall, obviously the famous action movie star, well, vaguely famous, not so famous as he used to be, action movie star, so most famous for the movie Under Siege. Who was in a load of action movies in the 80s, and subsequently has been, his career has kind of gone down and down and down since then. So he co-wrote this book with another guy whose name escapes me now, who's like a Republican, I think he's the head, or was the head of the Arizona Republican Party. It's a thriller, so kind of like an action novel about a conspiracy. And a Native American policeman who's kind of trying to unpick this conspiracy and figure out what's going on. So, so far that kind of sounds all right, doesn't it? So it sounded to me like it would, it would be a bit of pulpy, cheesy fun. So it's written by an action movie star, which is quite fun. And it's about, it's got a Native American hero, so that sounds pretty good. And it's about conspiracy theory. So, all of that sounds okay so far. However, the writing is just awful. I mean, just really ineptly written. Terrible, terrible dialogue. The plot was all over the place. No real tension. So, a bit of a failure as a book anyway. But then the conspiracy, so the conspiracy that the book is about, and as you can see on the cover, it says that it's about, the deep state. And it paints itself very much as, based on, the kind of stuff that might actually be happening. The conspiracy is that President Obama, he's not named, but it's clearly Obama, has, effectively infiltrated American society. He's got his minions in all of the big, government agencies, and they are smuggling Islamic terrorists into America by hiding them in groups of illegal immigrants coming over the border from Mexico. In order to commit, terrible terrorist acts on American soil. So that's what it's about. So A, it was shit anyway, and B, it's the most horrible reactionary right-wing bollocks too. So I will talk more about it in my Sunday Bollocks video tomorrow, but it was a truly, truly appalling book. I thoroughly recommend not reading it. So yeah, that's what I have read this week. What I'm reading at the moment, so I've got an audiobook. So I haven't listened to an audiobook for ages, but I got sent some audiobooks by a publisher called Capricorn Literary, who are republishing, so they've got the rights to a bunch of kind of vintage horror books from the 80s. So the one I'm listening to is What's Wrong with Valerie by D.A. Fowler. So a few people, so Kelly Hooked on Books and Crystal at Fibre Artsy, read another D.A. Fowler book, which I think was called Book of the Damned, a couple of months ago, and were absolutely raving about it. So I was really keen to read some D.A. Fowler. And when Capricorn Literary approached me and offered me these audiobooks, I was like, yeah, brilliant. So I've got another one by D.A. Fowler and one by another author whose name escapes me now. But this one's really good so far. So it's about this woman called Valerie, who's a writer, who has inherited her, I think it's her aunt's kind of old house, and she's living there with a lodger who she basically knows nothing about, and weird shit has started happening basically, and it kind of feels like she might be losing her mind. So yeah, so far I'm only like 3 or 4 chapters in, but it's really gripping so far. So yeah, definitely enjoying that. And then also again so Kelly Hooked on Books has a Virginia Andrews kind of reading group which I've just joined. So they have been reading the Dollanganger books, which I read a few years ago. Now reading this, my Sweet Audrina, so I will definitely be doing a countdown to Garb August video on this. It's what am I, 60 pages in, and it is absolutely bonkers so far. There's so much weird shit going on in this book. Sorry, I'm being a bit sweary than normal today, aren't I? I do apologise if there are small children listening. So yeah, a very, very strange book so far. Absolutely over the top, but I'm really, really enjoying it. So that's what I'm reading at the moment. In terms of stuff I might read in the coming week, so basically westerns. So I think these 5 are all westerns I may read in the coming week. So I've just got this, came through the post. So Payback at Morning Peak by the actor Gene Hackman, which I've heard great things about. A few people have recommended this to me in the comments, so I thought I would pick up a copy of that. So I may give that a try. I've got one of the Lone Star books. So as I said, this is a spin-off from Longarm. So this is book 142 in the Lone Star series. So Lone Star and the Deadly Vixens. So this is like Longarm, kind of a bit of a smutty western, but with the added bonus of kung fu and shurikens and ninja stuff. So you can't really go wrong with that. I've also got I think this is a British adult western. So I'm interested to see. So this is Gunslinger Rebel Vengeance by Charles C. Garrett. So I'm keen to read this because I'm interested to see whether a British adult western is smutty or just excessively violent. I suspect it might just be excessively violent. So if I manage to read both, I'll do some sort of comparison of the two. And I've also got The Authentic Death of Hendry Jones by Charles Neider, which I've been meaning to read for ages, so I'm definitely going to fit that in as part of June on the Range. And then these 2 Richard Matheson books, Journey of the Gunyers and The Gunfight. So I'll probably read Journal of the Gunyers this week as well. So at least some of those I will get in this week. Yeah, so that is what I have been reading and what I've got coming up to read. In terms of channel stuff then, so what have you had on the channel in the past week? So my Sunday Bollocks video on Sunday just gone was about libraries. So in response to a comment from subscriber Kevin Judge, I did a video on libraries, which people seem to have quite enjoyed. I did on Monday, I did a kind of long-term review of my Kindle. So I'd done a couple of Kindle reviews ages ago when I first got it. So I thought I'd do a long-term review. Now I've had it for 6 months. On Tuesday, I did the 5 English novels tag, which was quite fun. So my top 5 English books that I've read since starting the channel. On Wednesday, I did a library tour. So a library tour of some of the historical fiction books I've got in my library. On Thursday, I did that review, or double head review that I talked about, comparing Riders of the Purple Sage and Blood Meridian. And then on Friday, I had a book haul video talking about some of the many books behind me. So mostly trashy stuff, including what may be the trashiest book I've ever bought, which is called The Gynecologist. So that's what I've had in the last week. In the week ahead, I think I'm going to do, so my Sunday Bollocks video tomorrow is going to be kind of how far is too far for books, talking about that Stephen Seagall book. And I think I'm going to do the mid-year free count tag, as it's the middle of the year. A few people are doing that at the moment. My library tour video this week. I think now that I believe my 7th Precinct collection is complete, I'm going to do a tour of all of my 7th Precinct books, which that might end up being a long video because there's like 56 books to talk about, I think. And then on Thursday, you will have, for Countdown to Garb August, I've done a review of The Amiga Terror by Nick Carter. And I've got a review of The MD by Thomas M. Dish, which I filmed a while ago. So I think I'll probably put that one up as well. And then Friday, I'm not sure. I might have a day off on Friday. Yeah, we shall see. If something comes up. Oh, actually, I'm expecting this month's Abominable Book Club box to land this week. So if that comes in this week, I will do an unboxing of that, and that will go up on Friday. So yeah, that's kind of the week ahead. In terms of other stuff, kind of life stuff, it's been a really busy week at work again, but quite a productive one. Working through kind of housey stuff as well, so making some plans for redecoration of this room. So maybe at some point in August this room will get redecorated, get some new shelves, so you may get a different look to the videos from that point on. Our bed has finally arrived and is incredibly comfortable. It's the most comfortable bed I've ever slept in, so very pleased with that. But yeah, the sun is shining this weekend, so yeah, may get out on the bikes with my son. We may go to the cinema and see the new Top Gun film. Haven't decided yet, but hoping to do some nice stuff with him. He is still asleep at the moment because he's a teenager and doesn't get up before the afternoon at the weekends. But yeah, that's me, I guess. So do let me know what you're reading at the moment. Let me know what you've got going on. Oh, one other thing I just wanted to call out. So best wishes to Philip Nicholson, who's a long-term subscriber, who's not very well at the moment. So hopefully you see this, Phil. Hopefully you are starting to feel a bit better. I know you picked up an Ed McBain and have been reading that and enjoyed that. And I think you've got Lonesome Dove to read next. So I think that should keep you occupied while you convalesce. So yeah, hope you start feeling better soon. Best wishes from me, and I'm sure from everyone else who watches as well. So yeah, that's me. As I say, let me know what you've been reading in the comments. Let me know what you're up to. And as always, thank you very much for watching. Hope you're safe and well. Hope you're reading good stuff. And I will speak to you again very soon. Cheerio.